Welcome to BleepinJeep. In this episode, we're going to show you how to convert the rear suspension of an Axial SCX10 to leaf springs just like a real XJ. First, we're going to start off with what an Axial SCX10 comes with, stock. So normally it's a 3-link front and a 4-link rear. I do get a lot of questions about this mod, and there's really nothing to it. You don't need any kind of kit or anything. You just need the leaf spring hangers and the leaf springs, and you just need to drill a few holes and it'll work. So this is what we're going to need for one side of the leaf spring conversion. So we're going to need the RC 4-wheel drive Shackle Kit. We're going to need 3 19mm M3 bolts. We're going to need 4 7.5 by 6mm spacers, and you can get these from RC 4-wheel drive or Axial. We need 1 6 by 6mm spacer, and of course the 4 M3 knocking nuts, and 1 25mm M3 bolt, and of course a leaf spring, preferably one that's not bent like this one. First thing I did was I drilled 2 holes on each side of the chassis, about 1.25 inches away from the first shock hoop hole. So you can see here, it's these 2 holes that I drilled, and you really only need to measure one of them because you can hold up the RC 4-wheel drive bracket leaf spring hanger, and you can just go ahead and mark the other one once you have your first one marked. Okay, so we're going to use the 7.5 by 6mm to space the shackle away from the chassis. So this is how it's going to go. Start off with the flat piece. So it's going to go something like this. Okay, once you get the first shackle together, it's going to look something like this. Okay. And these spacers are to space it away from the chassis, and you'll see right now. Then we use the 2 M3 lock nuts on one side. So here they are bolted up to the chassis, and you can see why that the hangers have to be spaced from the chassis, because as you can see it narrows as it goes back. So next we have to mount the rear shackles to mount the rear of the leaf spring, and the good thing about this is you can use existing holes that are to mount the rear bumper, so you don't have to drill anymore. Just the first 4 holes for the front spring hangers is all that you have to drill, and the rest everything bolts on. So to assemble the rear hanger, all you need is the 25mm M3 bolt, the 7.5 inch by 6mm spacer, and of course the 6 by 6mm spacer. Here's what it looks like assembled, and it's ready to bolt onto the SCX10. Here's the rear shackles mounted, and keep in mind you don't want to tighten them too much because this will affect the articulation if they are too tight, so fairly loose is okay. So here's the standard SCX10 rear axle. Now, this is the biggest question I get for this modification. It's also the easiest. How do you mount the leaf springs to the axle? Well, you can use the existing truss holes for the 4-link. You just take the 4-link truss off, and you can use the holes in the leaf springs to just bolt it in. And I like to leave the front hole of the spring forward just to help with the pinion angle. You'll see in a second once I get it together. Here you can see by bolting it to the back 2 holes of the leaf spring, it'll help point the pinion towards the transmission, just like a real Jeep. See, and now all you have to do is just bolt up the spring to the hangers, and that's it. The last part of the install is the shocks, and you can also use the existing holes in the straight axle adapters for the rear shocks, and that's it. And I also forgot to mention that you might need a couple of washers to space the shock away from the axle. So that's all I did. I'll go ahead and use this so you can see. And same thing on the other side. And that's the end of the install. You have leaf springs just like a rear Cherokee. And a lot of people say that the rear leaf springs don't give you any travel. Well, when they're set up properly, they will. And so you can see there's quite a bit of flex still. So that concludes the install. You can see there's really not much to it. Keep in mind, most of this stuff I just had laying around, so I was able to throw it all together. I didn't really have to buy anything. So most of us RC guys have a bunch of spare parts. So I'm going to be doing RC videos, running videos, more how-tos, and I also have a couple of real XJs and a WJ, so expect some videos for those too. Thanks for watching BleepinJeep.